Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchising. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of Ion Franchising. I am your host, Lance Graulich. So today we have a very unique brand. I'm very excited. This is a subject actually pretty near and dear to my heart. There's a lot going on in the world of mental health today. So today, I have Chris. I have Chris Pash, who is a co-founder of Ellie Mental Health. Chris was a director with Best Buy for the last 20, 30, 40 years. I'm kidding, 20 years as a director from Best Buy. We'll talk about that. And Hallie Corbett. Hallie's the COO, Chief Operating Officer. And she's a big-time hockey player, although her knee's a little swollen right now. We might not have time to dive into that. 2 boys, married. Another Minnesota native. Chris, I don't know if you were a Minnesota native or not.
Minnesota native. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, welcome, Hallie, and welcome, Chris, to Ion Franchising.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lance, for having us.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it. Ellie Mental Health. Ellie Mental Health. So mental health today is, in my family and friends, coming out of the pandemic, especially, I think we're out of the pandemic, mental health is talked about in the news, in my family, every single day. And when I knew Ellie existed, and it wasn't even on my radar, you guys just started last year. So give me a background on how this came about. Obviously, we know there's an enormous need. As far as I know, this is the only brand like it, and you guys are selling like crazy. So give me the backstory on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having us. It's always fun to do these podcasts. This is one of the things that's new for us as we've gotten into this is podcasts and interviews and whatever. So hopefully we're okay. We'll see. But Ellie started in 2015, and it's born out of the frustration of 2 social workers, Aaron and Kyle, that worked at a community government center, and we're trapped in the typical community government center life cycle of this is the way we've always done things. Just wait. Something maybe we can do this, maybe we can't. And the frustration built. They continue to see gaps in access to quality care and just innovative access to approach to programming. So they quit, right? As typical millennials would do. And they started Ellie, right? We signed a lease in St. Paul for 3 offices. They've got a friend, Faye, to come with them. And they opened Ellie with the idea of let's just do what we want to do and provide therapy the way we want to provide therapy, right? And this business, it really is almost B2B minded when you talk about quality outcomes begets more referrals, right? So as they started to deliver a good level of service, started getting more referrals. As people started talking about the experience, employees want to come work there, and it kind of just snowballs from there, right? So within 6 months, we had knocked down the wall in our 3-office building and added 6 more offices, right? Then you fast forward.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this early success. So how big was this original office, and how many, and where'd you get these customers from? I know there's a need, but how do you start that?
Yeah, it was about, I think it's like 1,200 square feet. It was 3 offices in a waiting room. And Aaron and Kyle had both practiced a little private practice on the side while they were getting their master's. They were getting their licensure and doing the work at the county. So they had some clients that they were seeing, but they also had a network of people that they started to build when they're at the county. So the county government refers people to access the services, and so they were start to get referrals. Gotcha. And the referral network builds, right? And more referrals come from that.
Love it.
But you knocked on the wall in 6 months, add more offices, and then you fast forward 6.5 years, and we've got 16 Minnesota locations open. And we started franchising last year, and to date we've had 77 deals and 191 units. And we're talking to you about franchising, right? And it really is special for us because it just happens to be like the stars aligned with need, access, destigmatization, opportunity, right? Like we've been around for a long time. We've talked about franchising or national growth for a long time. And it just happened to line up that we decided to franchise the very beginning of last year and work through it. So when we launched, unfortunately, the pandemic exists, but now there's such destigmatization and such need for it that it is a very passionate topic for people. And we've been really excited about the level of interest we've seen so far.
So tell me, why franchising? Why did you guys pick that avenue?
Yeah, there's really 2 reasons why we decided to franchise. One is the reason we're successful in Minnesota, we believe, is because we're from the community in which we work, right? Aaron grew up in the Twin Cities in St. Paul. She went to school in Dakota County. So we're very connected in this community. And the belief that we could go to a different state, Austin, Texas, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, and know as much or more than someone that's lived there for a long time would be naive of us to do. So we wanted to have the opportunity for someone to give back to their community because I think they're passionate about it, more connected. That's number one. Number two is really leads to the challenge that exists in mental health care today, I believe, which is people that went to school to be therapists, open a private practice with the idea of doing really, really good. And they start to get so busy, they have to start also running a business, right? And a lot of them didn't go to school to do the business piece. As they start to get more successful, they have to balance those things, and you can't give 100% to both things. Yeah. Right. And so you start to see a lot of therapists burn out, see people start to leave the industry, et cetera. And so think about entrepreneurs like all the business stuff, right? They're investors, they're investing their own money, they're doing whatever that is. And so you kind of combine these two things, like the investment person that's passionate about mental health care, that has the resources, passionate, excited about the business, with a therapist who's passionate about making a difference in their community and making a difference in people's lives. Let them both do what they're best at, and it becomes really, really magical in our opinion. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we've been so successful.
Yeah. A lot of times, when therapists graduate and they're looking for the first job, they have this choice, right? They can go into private practice and they can decide who they want to see, when they want to see them. They can have that flexibility and that autonomy, or they can go to a larger practice where they've got a lot of support. So they have a billing team, they've got a scheduling team, but they don't have flexibility in their schedule. They don't have flexibility to decide what types of clients are the best fit for me. Who do I want to see? How do I want to deliver care, right? Can I have creativity in the way that I deliver care? And so we talk about the Ellie difference, and that was really our making this a hybrid model, right? So we want to take those great things from private practice, the uncapped compensation, the creativity, the flexibility to be able to see who you want to see, when you want to see them, but then also combine that with the support of a large organization, which means somebody to do your billing and scheduling for you. It means that you have camaraderie. It means that you have teammates. And people who get into private practice, they love the uncapped earnings, and they love the flexibility that they have, but they also spend so much time doing the things that bog a therapist down, which is scheduling, which is insurance credentialing, which is billing, all of these extra pieces that it's probably 1 hour for every client scene that they're spending doing things that really are kind of an administrative burden when you're a therapist, and what you care about is being able to deliver care to clients. And that's going to put you at the point of burnout really quickly. And so when we delivered our model and we put it together, it was really intentional to take the best of both worlds and create a place for therapists to work where they could feel really fulfilled and engaged in their work, which is also going to lead to the best therapeutic outcomes for their clients.
I love it. So the initial vision of Ellie versus today is, who was the clientele initially versus as the franchising has truly begun and you have so many sold and, soon to be opened. Has that changed at all as far as, were you looking to serve kids before now you're serving more adults? I'm just curious about that.
No, I think the target audience is exactly the same. I mean, Aaron and Kyle have been very clear about our mission of filling the gap, right? And we fill the gap in access to quality healthcare. And you look around the country nationally, there's not a state that's different. The average wait time is over 3 weeks to get in to see a therapist, right? So providing access to people is a big deal. So the type of clients we serve and the way we serve them is no different. We're just scaling in a more broad way because I think what we have is special, and we can deliver something really cool to therapists and something really cool to clients and people in the community.
So who is that clientele? Again, based on what you guys are doing today, who is that clientele? When you say you have to wait on average 3 weeks, my wife is a school principal, and I've heard she was just telling me, and especially since the pandemic, kid related, that is, of course, kids are waiting weeks. Some of them have serious issues going on and they can't get into a mental health counselor. So, and I don't know if I have that right, mental health counselor, Hallie, you can straighten me out here with your master's.
Practitioner, it's all interchangeable, right? I mean, ultimately they're looking to see someone who's either a licensed or pre-licensed therapist who's going to help them with their mental health. And you're right, kids are waiting way longer. Kids are waiting longer than adults because when you think about, we have a shortage of therapists. We really do. There's not enough therapists for the amount of people that need help and support. And then when you take that pool that's already small, and then you kind of whittle it down to those who have a specialty or a certification or are able to work with children, that number gets even smaller because it can be even more difficult. There's even more of a niche, and even more kind of nuances and complexities that come to working with children. And so people are definitely waiting longer. One of the biggest things for us is we want to take a look at our wait list, and we want to say who is on our wait list, because as we're hiring, we need to make sure that we are filling those gaps. And so if we've got 500 kids on our wait list, that means we need to hire child therapists, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what we're going to set, kind of our intention on, and make sure that that's what we're doing, right? So if we've got this many kids on the wait list, we're gonna pause on adults, because we need to make sure that we can get therapists in who can see these kiddos who are waiting way too long to be able to see someone and address their mental health needs.
No, this is incredible. All right, let's dive into the franchise specific stuff. So my listeners are typically, they come from all over, but they're obviously interested in business ownership, might be into a franchise, definitely into a franchise. So why Ellie? We know there's a huge need, but let's, who wants to go ahead and talk about the average investment, whatever's in the franchise disclosure document? What is that investment range? What is the size of the building overall within that? So whoever wants to take that could jump right in.
Sure. Yeah, I could take that. So the average investment is between 161 and 334. The office spaces are relatively plain, right? It's pretty much office building in a healthcare setting. Think about where dentists and chiropractors, think about where those folks are. It's kind of the same concept, right? And the size of the clinic really is easy. You try to get as many offices on glass as you can, 8 to 10 in an office. Seems to work best for us. We don't need a large waiting room. We don't need a reception desk. We do everything virtually. You check in digitally when you get to the clinic.
Love it.
So it really is a very small build out when you think about what needs to be done. There's no anything special to be done. If we can't soundproof, we can use little sound machines, right? There it really is a really easy build out, in my opinion. You look at real estate across the country, this space appears to be widely available as we look across the cities that we've gone to.
And the territories. So right now you've sold quite a few. What are the hot territories at this point that are still available, I should say?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Top three you really want to go to?
Boy, I really want to go to. Man, the challenge is there's so much need, and this is where we've tried to balance like where we want to be versus where interest is, and we don't have to be picky and like we want to be in this market, right? There's places we want to be, but interest is being generated from all over the place. We've got tons of folks in Texas, Houston, and Dallas, and Austin have been really hot for us. Denver we have some really great franchises in Denver. Our first franchisee is in Indiana, but Illinois is starting to pick up too. I think Chicago is a great city for us to be in. Boston's a good city for us to be in. I start to look up down the East Coast. Florida would be a good place for us to expand a little bit.
Florida and Texas seem to be incredibly hot, great places to do business. So for all franchises, It seems like you're going to have plenty of interest in Florida and Texas for sure.
Correct.
So let's talk about franchisees, or let's talk about your ideal franchisee. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, so who owns an Ellie mental health franchise? Are they investor types? Obviously there are people that are very passionate about this particular business.
Yeah. Chris and I talk about this because I think it's one way with both of us who are not therapists. It's a way that we can relate. We talk about, we would be people to open up Ellie franchises, right? If we weren't, because we're people who care deeply about mental health, deeply about our community. If we're going to open up a business, it's a business that you want to be able to give back. Of course, it's always going to be profit driven. We want everyone to be successful. We want everyone to make money. But at the end of the day, there's so much more to it than that. And there's so many people that want to be in helping careers and that want to help people that don't have a medical degree or a therapy degree. And this is an opportunity for those people to be able to jump into this field and really give back to their community in a way that they probably never imagined that they would be able to without a therapy license, right? Or without being, specific in the helping or medical field. And so we're really looking for people who are passionate. We're looking for people who would a therapist feel compelled to work for them, because we know that the secret to success you have happy therapists, you have happy clients, and the culture is
Right.
such a huge piece. So culture is a huge thing that we're looking at is, are they going to be able to kind of emulate and infuse the Ellie culture at their clinic? Who are they going to attract to be that clinic director who's going to be recruiting therapists, who's going to be recruiting clients? Do they have an entrepreneurial spirit? Because it's difficult, right? You're going and you're recruiting in a field that maybe you don't have experience in. And so are they going to be able to jump in feet first and build the relationships that are needed to make their clinic successful? So I think those are some of the big pieces that we're looking for. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think you nailed it exactly. I think the most important thing to us is someone has a passionate connection to mental health. And if you think about our discovery days, our first couple were 2 or 3, and they've been larger since then. But you have people that are meeting each other for the first time and crying, sharing their story about how they've been impacted by mental health and why they're so passionate about it, right? And that passion is so important to us, right? Like, I get you want to make money at the end of the day, but that is an outcome of passion and great work, right? And we want them to passionately do great work, and they'll provide financially for themselves, whatever. But that passion is really important. And the thing that's important for me also is that entrepreneurial spirit. And I'm so impressed with the people that have signed to date. We don't have item 19 for any franchise locations. We have 0 franchise locations open.
I'm sure you have the ability to make a lot of money though, Chris, and that's why these people are jumping on board. They know.
Yeah, right. I mean, they do know. We provide them some access to information that would allow them to see insurance reimbursement rates, what they potentially charge for a therapy session. But these folks are jumping on, have that passion and belief that they know they help us build this thing out as it goes, right? Ellie has been successful because we're really innovative, right? We take feedback from everywhere, all these places, all the time. And the people that have signed on have already helped us shape things in our FDD, helped us shape things in the model. And I'm just super impressed with their ability to A, jump on before it's a thing, and B, their willingness to provide feedback and give us grace to make sure this thing going the right way.
Yeah,
So-
and we're always welcoming that feedback because we know how to operate a mental health clinic, right? We have done that successfully, but then we have these franchisees who have been really successful in marketing or really successful in real estate or in all these other areas where we're so excited to soak in and absorb their knowledge to be able to help us continue to bring Ellie forward. We are not afraid of change. I think that's one of the things that's really helped us continue to grow, is that when something's thrown our way, we're not afraid to pivot and shift to meet the needs of our communities, of our therapists. And so it's been cool to have people come in with these different skill sets and say, hey, maybe we should think about doing it like this. And we're like, maybe we should. Can't wait to work with you.
Right.
Yep. You know, that's Hallie, you hit on something so important, because that is the magic of franchising, is you get all these really smart people that did other things that are buying into your dream, to your vision to build this brand, and they become an intricate part of it. I always tell everybody at McDonald's, the filet of fish and the Big Mac were invented by franchisees. And, so that collaboration and those best practices are enormous down the road. But it sounds like my next question was going to be, so of all of the people that have signed on thus far to be franchisees, including the franchisees that are open, is there anything in common? Of course, the passion for mental health, but as far as industry, are there teachers? Are they marketing people? Are they attorneys? Where are they coming from?
Yes, they're all of those things. I think I was looking at the list earlier today, and you have people that are been CMOs or CFOs at publicly traded companies that have signed on as franchisees. You have doctors that have signed on as franchisees. We have 4 or 5 veterans that have signed on as franchisees. So there is a wide breadth of people that have joined, and they all have that passion and purpose in common. So as now we've targeted a certain industry or career type, we've had existing franchisees. We have consultants. We have someone from our sales development company that is a franchisee. So there's just all walks of life that have joined the family, and we couldn't be more proud.
So one thing I want to make sure we address, and I think, Hallie, you were talking about this, when it comes to, let's say, med spas or the IV infusion brands that I represent quite a few of as well, you need a medical director. So it doesn't sound like you need any kind of medical director specifically here in any state.
You do need a clinic director. Your clinic director has to be a licensed therapist.
Got it.
are specific states, and I think Chris can maybe go into it a little bit more in detail, but the corporate practice of medicine does still play a part in the entire kind of opening process and laying out what that ownership structure looks like. So there are a few nuances with corporate practice of medicine in some of our states.
Yeah. So the clinic director, like in a way I was suggesting with the medical director within franchising, I know, and Chris, we don't necessarily need you to hammer through all of those states, but we know states like California, for example, tend to be pretty stringent. In fact, that's the only state, to my recollection, you have to actually, like, you have to be a doctor to own, an IV infusion brand in the state of California. I think they might change it, but that's how it was. So, so I'm sure that's not exactly a challenge. There's plenty of people you get in place to assist with that.
Yeah, it's been we work with a great law firm. It's kind of helped us kind of get to the concept of it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how, right? And they give them a consultation, help them set up their business structure. In Texas, it's a little more difficult than in Florida, obviously, but there's the law firm that we use really helps people kind of get to that balance. And again, it's we've had no one have a problem, right? It's not if, it's how.
Yeah. So let's talk about the support overall. The two of the most important things, besides having a solid roadmap and blueprint to follow as a franchisee, is let's kind of go in order. Go with your training, let's just say. So somebody comes on board, or if you want, Hallie, you could back it up all the way to the process and how the franchisee is right, whether you have a meet the team day, discovery day, how you're doing that process all the way through, let's say, training.
Well, Chris, do you want to talk about up through discovery day, and then I'll kind of talk about training and once they've signed?
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So we early on partnered with someone in franchising smarter than us. So we used the Repum group, Nick Sheehan, Rob Cambruzzi, and Jason Ryan have really helped us kind of define the sales process, the operations process, and all the stuff that gets people to open successfully. But the Repum team helps us filter through leads. We do a really extensive, like 4 or 5 different call or meeting situation. We let franchisees talk to our clinicians, right? Because we know that's the product. They can ask questions about the system, their experience, whatever. We do unit economics call. We do a founders call with Aaron, Kyle, and I, and then they come to Minnesota for a decision day or discovery day. We spend 24 hours, really a day and a half, really learning about the brand, each other. We work really hard on personal connection relationship, because again, I think this is so much more about that for us than it is about anything else. Fit is really important for us. So spend that time, day and a half, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they leave Wednesday, and then the team gets together. We sit down, we kind of just talk about people's personality. I mean, it's a lot of therapists, right? So by the end of the time of decision day, you've got like 15 therapists and all their perspective and opinion on the people that are just in town. So we sit down in a group and we just go through folks on the screen and read their bios again and make sure we feel good and give them a yes or no, understand the geography, the number of units, et cetera. And then they sign, right? We say we approve them. They decide they want to be a franchisee, they sign, and then they get turned over to Hallie's team.
Got it.
Yeah. And we've been really lucky. We've built such a solid operations team here in Minnesota with our 16 clinics that we currently have operating, that we've been able to pull some of that talent over to really help with franchising. And so the biggest thing for us is that we make sure that people feel connection and support from the get-go. And so as soon as somebody signs on, in the next week or two after they sign, they're going to have a kickoff call with our operations opening manager, who's going to walk them through, okay, here's day one, but this is what this process is going to look like, and here's the support we're going to provide to you. We have a robust checklist in which we are walking people through every single step of the way. We have our subject matter experts that they're connecting with to talk about real estate, build out, contracting, credentialing, hiring, outreach, marketing, all of those steps until they're getting prepared to open. We're really excited because we've recently hired, we're calling them territory coaches, and essentially based on geography, it's actually a clinical leader who's going to be assigned to each franchisee, who's going to be their point of contact through opening. So they'll be able to not only help them from an operational perspective, but also from a clinical perspective, because not all of our franchise owners have experience in the therapy space. And so they're going to be able to help them with selecting their space. They're going to be able to help them with recruiting and sitting in and looking at resumes and saying, who's going to be the best fit for your clinic? How are we going to compensate them? Going through all of those different steps with them, while also having access to all of our different kind of subject matter experts, we call them here, at our headquarters in Minnesota who can help troubleshoot any barriers that they might be running into. We have a really robust, we're calling it Ellie Academy. It's our kind of boot camp that people will come to Minnesota about a month before or 2 months before they open. And they're
not in the winter time, right?
It was kind of always winter time here. So it was kind of about like 3 months.
Yes, it is.
Right. We'll keep them really warm and entertained. So don't worry. But
So Ellie University sounds fabulous. Lot to teach.
Lots to teach. And then once people become operational, there's going to be a handoff from the territory coach to their operations coach, who's going to help them pull reports, who's going to help them with KPIs, who will be the liaison between our scheduling team and the franchisee, the billing team and the franchisee, to make sure that we're covering and able to help them with all areas of their business, helping them set goals, helping them achieve those goals, and really making sure that there's clear communication. They have all the information that they need to run a successful business.
Well, I was going to ask you, how are you going to handle all of this amazing growth? And I think you sort of answered that. You're already hiring territory coaches. And I love that. I mean, that's what huge brands do in preparation for this monstrous growth. But it sounds like you guys have the systems, but speak a little bit to the growth. I mean, you have to be over the moon with the success you've seen so far.
We're over the moon. Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that we're providing our franchisees with the amount of support that they need to be successful, right? With the amount of support that they need to open their doors. This is a unique industry. There's a lot of different things that kind of depend on each other. So for instance, once you've found a site, you can't start your credentialing process with insurances until you have an address. And you also can't start that process until you have a clinic director whose name is on that application. And so there's all these variables in the very beginning that are really dependent on each other. And so that's where we want to be super heavy on the support in the beginning to make sure that people can really meet the timelines that they're wanting to meet in order to get their doors open. So that part's huge to us. We're doing all the scheduling, we're doing all the insurance billing and the contracting and credentialing for our franchisees. And so we've had this experience in Minnesota where we've scaled and we have 16 locations with actually 4 more that will be open in the next 2 months, which is super exciting. So we know how many schedulers we need. We know how many billers we need, right? So we've been able to look at some of those different ratios and make sure that we're prepared ahead of time for our franchisees so that when their doors open, we've got robust support systems ready for them.
That's incredible. It's incredible what you guys are doing. I mean, you're handling everything with the insurance claims.
We are.
Amazing. Chris, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the thing that we're most proud of is the way we've kind of built the post-open support structure, right? Like the stuff we've done on the front side, I think is fantastic too, but worked really hard to get our fee structure correct. So the franchisees are helping us as we grow. We're hiring people in a just-in-time mindset, right? Hallie said we understand how many calls they can take, how many claims they can bill. And the methodology allows us to have someone hired and trained and they're ready to go when they need it, not we hired someone when we're ready and they take 6 months to get trained and staffed, whatever, right? I mean, we could support franchisees today. We have no locations open. We could support franchisees today with our current staff and with what we've hired. I feel really comfortable in our ability to get people set up. And the other thing, like around the growth, like we are very intentional about like, is it too fast? Is it too many? How many can we do? Like we are very clear, like we're not just trying to race to a number, right? Because to us, it's really important people get open and get to be successful. Because what's important, like bad therapy is worse than no therapy, in my opinion. If you get people half open or they're not successful, they find the wrong people, it's gonna be really bad for those clients, which we care about at the end of the day. So we're very in tune with and in touch with and have a lot of honest conversations with me, Kyle, Aaron, Hallie, about how are we doing? Pulse check, can we keep going? Should we stop? Should we slow down? Whatever that is. And at every turn, we felt really comfortable saying, no, we're good. Right?
Yeah,
we're good.
No, and it certainly sounds like you are. One of the questions I just want to kind of go back to a little bit when we're talking about all this insurance, is there a percentage of customers that are self-pay?
There are.
Yeah.
It'll depend on market. It's going to really largely depend on market. Insurance companies will pay different rates for therapy in different states. Your ability to get a contract might vary state by state, but we know we have a lot of franchisees. We're doing super in-depth research before they even come to a decision day. So we already are prepared for, here's what your market looks like. Here's the percentage of cash pay versus insurance. Here's what your rates might look like so that they can put those rates into their pro forma and figure out what they want their structure to look like. Then when we submit for their insurance contracts, we determine, is this rate going to be viable for you to operate your clinic? Do you want to go for this contract, or do we wait later and we try to negotiate based on our success and based on our client research and data in that area? And so we're super intentional about what's kind of current common trends in this market, and then how do we make sure that your business model fits and will be successful in this market.
You know, one of the things that really dawns on me as you're talking about that is I represent quite a few restoration brands, and especially, you know, the thunderstorm damage and things like that happen. These brands, these franchisors, just like you, have done their homework, and there are certain areas they're not as interested in going in, and there's the majority that they already can predict. They can't actually give that information to a prospective franchisee, but they can predict, wow, there's a lot going on in this particular city. And it sounds like you guys got that figured out as well. It's not as much of a mystery to you guys anymore as to what kind of business you're really going to have.
No, we've been really impressed with our team around how we've said, hey, here's what we think it's going to be. And as we've had franchisees get contracts or whatever, we've been like right on. So we feel really good about how we're understanding predicting the business. The other thing I think about is think about industry disruptors and why we go somewhere. Like the disruptor for us is not like, we'll take all insurances at whatever rate it's going to be and whatever. Like the disruptor for us is the employee and therapist experience. I really believe that full cup allows them to provide great therapy, which is really the disruptor, but it's really the employee experience for us, the things we offer, things we provide, the things that Hallie talked about earlier, that really make the difference for us when we go to a market. So it's less about, here's the offering that's going to beat the competition, whatever it's going to be. Like it is really about the therapist experience to make sure they're pouring from a full cup.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I'm glad you're talking about that. And both of you have emphasized the customer service or the overall experience, because that's one thing I found in the most successful franchises that I represent today. Customer service has everything to do with it. I'm hearing more about net promoter scores and such that I haven't ever heard before. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we don't do net promoter score in our field at all.
No.
When I came from where I came from, it was a big thing. But really for us, like we really believe that experience, that client experience is so important, because there's a lot of things that happen with a bad experience in therapy, right? Like if you had a bad experience at a retail store, you might not go back there, right? I understand that. If you have a bad experience in therapy, you might not ever go back, and you might have other challenges that come from that, or you could be in a situation where you need that access or need that care, right? So we feel really, really strong about that client experience being really good.
Right. Absolutely. Hallie, anything to add to any of that?
No, I mean, we look at our client satisfaction surveys. We're always asking our clients how we're doing. So I think to just piggyback on what Chris said, is that's the most important piece for us at the end of the day. Like you said, you have an adverse experience in therapy, you might never go back to therapy. And that's why so we went back and forth, right, about, do we have a centralized call center, or does each franchisee have kind of their own receptionist? But one of the biggest pieces for us in terms of what makes Ellie so successful is that we pride ourselves on making the best match first between a client and a therapist. So it is not, who's the first therapist who has availability where you live. It's who's going to actually be the best fit for you based on the ages they see, the diagnoses they see, the issues they work on, their treatment competencies, different identities that might be important for you, right? And your therapist. And so our client access team is trained really specifically on making sure that when they're scheduling a client, fit comes first. And so I think that's part of the reason we knew that providing that centralized call center was huge for us, because there's so much research that supports client outcomes when matched with a therapist who's the best fit. And client outcomes ultimately are going to be the biggest, predictor of continued success. And what's been so cool about Ellie is people get referred to a therapist by their teachers, by their primary care doctors, by, other medical professionals. But at Ellie, we hear so many people who are referred by a family or friend because of what we're doing to break down the stigma around mental health. And so we've got these clients having these amazing experiences, and then they call and they say, yeah, my brother sees a therapist there and he loves it. And I've worked in mental health prior to Ellie my whole career, and I haven't heard those same stories be shared, and the way that people are just openly talking about mental health and how they talk with their family and talk with their friends about it. And that's really special for us.
I love it. Basically breaking down the stigma. It's not some scary place you have to be so nervous about. So I have two sort of final directions I want to take this. One, what is your average age for your typical customer? I kept talking about kids, but there's plenty of adults. What is the average age of an LE customer or client, I should say?
Oh, that's a hard question. I mean, we are really we see everybody. We really do. I would say like our biggest demographic is probably like 16 to 50. And I know that's a wide range,
Okay.
but truly, I mean, we're really seeing a huge variety.
I figured it can certainly be across the spectrum. And the last big piece, we talked a lot in general about marketing. So it sounds like you're getting an enormous amount of referrals. So if somebody becomes a franchisee in a new city, you already, through insurance and local agencies, when they hear you're coming, I would imagine you essentially can potentially have a big opening, a big grand opening. Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely the goal. Everything that we're doing with marketing right now is to increase our national brand recognition. That's really important to us. But another facet of marketing for us that's just as important as any print or any digital marketing is the community outreach and engagement that we're doing. So actually each franchisee, when they come on board with Ellie, they're not just getting the marketing efforts that we're putting out there in their market, they're getting an outreach playbook and an outreach visit from our national director of outreach who is showing them how to do it, who's popping up a tent and a table with them and talking with, potential clients, potential referral sources, potential clinicians at different conferences or community events about Ellie, and really modeling that Ellie way, who's giving them a list of here's all the people to network with in your community. Here's how you can help each other. Here's what that script might look like. So really empowering people to build relationships and then also maintain those relationships is really part of the core of kind of their pre-opening success. And so we want to make sure that when people are getting ready to open their doors, the other primary care clinics, the hospitals in town, the schools already know about Ellie, not because they saw just because they saw an ad online, but because we went and visited with them and we had a conversation about what are the issues that your students or your clients or your patients are dealing with, and what do they need, right, in order to be helped, in order to have help for their mental health. And we hope that when we open our doors, people will remember those experiences and that in-person human to human connection that we made, and those relationships that will continue to nourish as we continue to grow.
Yeah,
Great
and Lance, there's
stuff.
really the interesting part of this also is we posted on our website coming soon, right? And the work that the outreach team is doing is amazing, right? And Maryland is fantastic, and it's really, really important. And at the same time, we said coming soon in these cities. We have clients calling from these cities already asking to get on a wait list if we're open, right? So talk about like the need that exists. We just said coming soon, and we have calls coming into the call center saying, hey, when you open, I'll wait, whatever we're gonna do. Like there's really a need, right? And so you think about that and the work that the team is doing, like there's potential for people to open in a really strong way, really, really quickly, which is great for the clients and the community.
It's incredible what you guys are doing. This has been absolutely
you.
fantastic. All right, final words of wisdom from both of you for today. Final thoughts, call it.
Wisdom. I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
It doesn't have to
wisdom.
be, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't need to pressure you. Just final thoughts. That's
Yeah.
totally fine. You've already dropped a lot of wisdom, both of you.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple of things. One, it's immense gratitude for the way people have received the brand, and two, just a kind of reminder of the people that we're interested in, right? Like we're interested in that passion, that community connection, the entrepreneurial spirit. Someone that talks about net and profit, like those things like make our eyes spin and like us drift off, right? We want to talk about client care, and at the end of the day, that begets profit, right? Like those things all work together. So
Hey, that was
passionate
Chris. That was
connection.
That was Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was the one that was super famous for saying that is, the profits will follow. You got to have that passion first.
100%.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're looking for an experience to be an entrepreneur, but you want it to mean something, Ellie is a place where it can mean something. Ellie's also a place where you get to be your authentic self. I don't know how many people get to go to a franchise discovery day and say, hey, I'm here because I had a kid who was really struggling with depression that couldn't get help. Or that could say, I lost a family member to suicide, or, could actually be able to go and share those types of things at one of these decision day type events. We welcome that. And we're here for those people, right? To sit with you and walk through it with you, and to be able to let you share that story in a really true, authentic way, to again, continue breaking down the stigma. And I think it's huge that people can come to Ellie and say, this is why I'm here, and be empowered to tell their story in hopes that it will help somebody else.
Well, and that was just an amazing wrap up. Chris and Hallie, I really appreciate you both being here. This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing everything about Ellie.
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.